Welcome to a new Alfresco video. Today we are covering the installation of Alfresco 7.2 in Windows by using Docker Compose. There are different ways of installing Alfresco in Windows and in some other operative systems, but probably this is the easiest way to do that. So let's move on to the contents. The first things we need, and this is a requirement from the Docker installation, is to install the Windows Assistant for Linux that you can get directly from Microsoft. Next step is to install this Docker for Windows using this Linux Assistant. Since we are going to deploy Linux Docker containers, Alfresco is using this kind of containers. So this is the recommended approach to install Dockers in Windows running Linux containers. So install Docker by using this Windows subsystem. The next one, and this is related with the tool we are going to use, is the installation of Node.js. We are recommending to install version 12 for that. And again, you can find all the information on the Node.js webpage. After that, we are going to install Yeoman and the Alfresco Docker installer tool that will guide you in the installation process of Alfresco. This tool is creating an Alfresco Docker Compose template ready to be run by using this simple command line. So let's move to that. We are going to cover this recording happening on a Windows box. So let's start with that. The first thing is to install Docker. So just go to the Get Docker page and get your Docker desktop for Windows application. Remember that we are going to use this Linux subsystem for Windows. So the first is to check that this is already installed. So in this system, we have this subsystem ready. So we are downloading the installer from Docker Desktop. Just double click. It will install different packages on your system. Probably it will also require some restarting. This is not the case in this recording. But again, we are using that Linux Assistant. We are installing all the files on the Windows machine. We can then just start the Docker Desktop. That is the desktop tool, the desktop program provided by Docker for that. You are going to see like a first screen, and you need to accept all the policies and so on from Docker. You can just see now that on the right side, on the bottom, Docker is starting. We accept this agreement, and after that, Docker will be ready in your system. So just waiting for Docker to be up and running. It takes like a few seconds, a pair of minutes to be ready. And after that, you will be able to run containers in your Windows machine. You can run the Alfresco stack, but you can also use Docker in order to run different different containers you want to use in your system. Let's wait for Docker, and Docker now has started. So we can check now if Docker is available in your system. This first time, since we didn't restore PowerShell, is not available. But if we restart that PowerShell console, we are going to see how Docker is ready from your command line. You can use Docker Desktop, but probably it's easier to use the command line, as it should be easier to perform some operations. So now Docker is ready in your system, and something relevant is the amount of resources that Docker is using. So Docker is not using all the memory and all the CPUs in your system, as this is relying on the Windows subsystem then we need to limit, or we need to provide the amount of mainly memory and processors that we want to provide to the subsystem. And since Docker is running on that, in the end, the amount of resources provided to Docker. So in this case, we have a machine with 16 gigabytes. So using 12 gigabytes should be fine. And also using like the half of the CPUs available is a good advice in general. So you need to create the configuration for this subsystem on your personal folder, on the folder that is starting Docker or the subsystem. So just create this file. In this case, we are going to use 12 gigabytes and 2 processors for that. So just create this file. You can okay, 2 processors. So then we save that on the right location with the right name, and this should be enough to allocate resources for Docker, and that is relying on the Linux system. So create the right name, that file with that specific name, WSL config, and with that we just need to restart Docker, so the new resources are applied to that. Remember that to run Alfresco, 16 gigabytes are recommended, but you can also work fine with these 12 that we are using in this demo. So from now, we have Docker already configured, and the next step is to configure this Alfresco Docker installer tool that will allow you to create that Docker Compose template. So the first thing is to install Node.js. We are recommending Node version 12. Just go to the web page and download the installer. And with again, with a simple double click, you are going to be able to install Node in your system. So this requirement is only for the Alfresco Docker installer tool. It's not a requirement for Alfresco, so you can also create this configuration in some other computer, and then to copy the configuration to this computer. But we are going to do all the work on the same machine. So with that, we are installing Node on the machine to use that Alfresco Docker installer tool. Just in a minute, we are going to have Node.js available. And we also need to check that is working as expected from the command line. So Node.js is just ready, and we are starting again the command line to check that Node.js have been properly installed. So we check the version of Node, and it's the expected one, Node version 12. We go again to the project, and we can see that we need to install also Yeoman. So we are going to install Yeoman. That is the tool used by this project in order to create this configuration. So we are installing Yeoman, just a bit. Okay, so we have now Yeoman installed, and the latest step is to install the Alfresco Docker installer tool. With this command, we are able to use this program from your command line. So again, we are installing the tool. Just copy and paste the instruction from the GitHub project. And from now, you will be able to run your Alfresco Docker Compose Docker installer from your command line. We are creating a folder so we can have all the resources created in the same folder. We are trying for first time the Alfresco Docker installer tool, and we are going to find a problem. So this problem is related with the execution policies for Windows, and you can fix that by the official configuration from Windows, and we are allowing to execute this kind of scripts from command line. So once we have this fixed, we can go again with the Yo Alfresco Docker installer. So this tool is providing a set of options so you can customize your Alfresco installation. We are going to use Alfresco 7.2, that is the latest. In our system, we have 12 gigabytes of RAM. We are not going to use an SSL proxy. We are running this in localhost with the default password, that is admin. We are going to use the 8080 port, that is the classical port used by Alfresco. We are also selecting some other services like FTP or PostgreSQL. The communication between Alfresco and Solar, ActiveMQ, you want to use that, SMT, LDAP, some default extensions or plugins that you can use. And we are running in Windows, so you need to choose this version in order to define how the data will persist in your system. This a number of files have been created, and you can just run the standard Docker Compose app, so we can just check if everything is starting at work. Docker is downloading all these Docker images from the Docker registry, and after that is starting the Alfresco stack. We are going to see that there are no errors in this log, and we are just waiting for the system to be ready. So once everything is up, you can find a line like this one in the log. So Alfresco server startup in a number of milliseconds. So from that, we have Alfresco running, and we need to check if all the services are really up and running, and check if everything is working as expected. So you can see that service URLs. Remember that in our case, instead of using the localhost 80 port, we are using the 8080 port. So that should be localhost in the port 8080. This is the ACA, the Alfresco content application. We can check that is working fine. We can also check if the share application, if the legacy UI is also working as expected, 8080 with the share context. And we can also remember that both applications, so the Alfresco content application and also the share application, are running by using the Alfresco application. So we need to check that all these three services are running. So we are checking now if the Alfresco service is running, and it does. So we have like everything started and ready to be used. If the Alfresco service is not running, then probably both the Alfresco content application and also share is not going to be running, and you are going to get some kind of message saying that Alfresco cannot be contacted at this time. So it looks like everything is up and running, and we are going to check where those files are stored by Docker. Since we are using the Windows configuration, all the volumes, all the persist information will be handled by Docker itself. So we can just check the Docker volume instruction, and with that, we can identify the physical path for the different storage options we have in Alfresco. So with Docker volume ls, we can see that we have the data for ActiveMQ, for the repo, for Postgres, also for Solar. And if we want to check the effective path for that, we can inspect some of the volumes, and we can see the physical path of this Docker volume. So for instance, the repo data is stored in that mount point. So with that, we have Alfresco running in Windows by using Docker Compose, relying on that Alfresco Docker installer application. So again, I hope that was useful information for you, and see you on next video.